Start button. There we go.
Okay.
So my testicle comment didn't make it on the air.
Yay. No testicles on air.
Of course, we're not on the air. We're on the bits.
There we go. Right. Okay.
So my testicle comment didn't make it on the air.
Yay. No testicles on air.
Of course, we're not on the air. We're on the bits.
There we go. Right. Okay.
So my testicle comment didn't make it on the air.
Yay. No testicles on air.
Of course, we're not on the air. We're on the bits.
There we go. Right. Okay.
So my testicle comment.
Let's loop that for an hour. Call it a night. See y'all.
That would be hilarious. That would be the show right there. Just do that. That would be a good April Fool's show sometime.
That's a great show title. Yay, no testicles on air.
Just take some little blurb like that, just some random tidbit, and loop it eternally for 50 minutes, and there's your show. I like it. Hey, Jenda.
That would be a great April Fool's show. And just for super grins, you could release it on all of the defunct shows as well. You know, just if anybody forgot to unsubscribe from those feeds.
You know, I don't know. Maybe someday I'll actually bring up another podcast or two. I don't know. Right now, I barely have time to do this one. Okay.
Oh, that's a tie.
Oh, yes. Please begin your local recordings at this time.
Degrading my hard drive now.
Speaking of, my daughter's Android tablet is exhibiting the telltale signs of a dying SD card. You know, how they just get slow and crappier and crappier over time.
Right. Does it show the storage space going down?
Yeah, it does. And probably because it actually is. I mean, she loads all the crap on it, but I would be interested to see if there's some way. I don't even know if I could get into it. It's probably super glued together. But see if there's some way to replace that SD card in an effective manner.
I still got that Lenovo tablet that somebody on the show actually recommended years ago, and it works great. I've had no problem since.
Well, you probably don't do much in terms of storage reading and writing, right?
No, I just sit on my butt and check my email periodically while I'm watching TV.
Yeah, so she does a lot of gaming. Gaming is storing data to the tune of hundreds of gigs. I mean, hundreds of megs per game, and that will fatigue these cheap SD cards. And every SD-based device I've ever owned has exhibited the same things after 3, 4, 5 years of use. It's just the fatigue of the device.
I was going to buy a new phone this week. I forgot. I've been podcasting and really running through the stuff on this one, and it still chugs along.
Podcasting, I like it.
Not a podcastering, podcasting.
Except a couple of weeks ago where you were just barely even a listener to the show.
Right.
Seth, are you back yet? Yeah.
Man, don't. I'm going to have nightmares.
All right. Let's, everybody is recording, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I have these multifocal progressive, which means there's really no area I can actually see clearly. That's the amazing part of multifocal lenses. You're multi-blinding. So I'll just take them off. I got some serious bags going. I need to nap. Anyway. Making a marker, beginning a show, scrolling up so I can see the title, and away we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GeekRant.
Take two.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GeekRant, episode 347. If it's not new, is it news? recorded January 27th, 2019, and brought to you by Element Opie Productions, elementop.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Drive Time Radio for Geeks. I am your host, Mark, the Sultan of the Soapbox Cockerel, and joining us, as always, are your stalwart co-hosts, Seth, the Gooey Kid Anderson, and Miles, the Aussie Engineer Wakeham. Hello, gentlemen.
Hey, Mark, and welcome, faithful Opie-ites. Way to Opie on.
Hey, it's first news show of 2019.
No.
Just
first news show. Yes, not news show. News.
No,
show.
not news show. News. Did I say new?
Just the two S's went together. News show and
Bad host.
Yeah. News show. It's difficult. Anyway. So this is. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. Because it's electrically charged. But last week was Martin Luther King Day, and it was the day before we did this recording, and that day, a friend of mine and I were at lunch at a restaurant, and next to us was a couple, man and woman, probably not a couple, just by the way they interacted with each other, probably business partners. He was Asian, she was black. And my friend and I were sitting across the aisle from them. We were both white, and we were having just a general sort of conversation about MLK Day in general. And what struck me about this is that I felt absolutely constrained about what I could say about Dr. King or about the holiday or anything, because within earshot of me was a black woman and an Asian man. And I'm not even going to go, I don't even want to go into the whole thing there, but it just, while we celebrate strides in where we are and where we have been, there's still so much of a politically correctness gotcha attitude that I felt constrained in what I could say. And that if not every word I said was utterly glowing about the man or the holiday, that I would somehow be offensive or wrong to those of a different race. So while we've come a long way, we still have a long way to go. Any thoughts on that? That just popped into my head just now as I was reading the date on that. I remembered that event, and it's like we've for some people in the culture the pendulum has swung to the point where we are less free than we were. Is that even, that's just wrong. That sounds like check your white privilege there. Anyway, maybe we should just get off of this hot rail, but you guys have anything to say before we move forward?
We as a culture are less mature and unable to even hear viewpoints that are different from ours without being offended. Yay, America.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. When I first came to America in '89, I was kind of the guy on the outside looking in, seeing this and not understanding what's the problem. And it wasn't just a lack of historical reference. I mean, I learned more over the years about history and how horrible this whole thing was. But it's just, there's kind of like I don't know, maybe it's just a sense of I was the outsider, the minority looking at the whole thing. I wasn't the minority in this particular context, but I just sort of looked at it and go, well, everyone's from everywhere else. So we all get along. Why is it any different here? But, it's not. I mean, that's a simplistic way of looking at things, but there are a lot of countries out there with a lot of different people from a lot of different places, and they have to learn to get along. It's just a matter of timing. It just takes a while.
Yeah, because we don't study history, or not even study it, because we refuse as a culture to be aware of history, we tend to accept the glowing praise that this one particular historical period was perfect, or this one particular historical period was hell on earth, and the entire period is painted that way, and there isn't any there isn't any allowances for it might have been bad like this, but it was good like that, or just because it was good for you doesn't mean it was good for me. And so we just make these broad sweeping statements and if you say something that doesn't line up with that narrative, you're ostracized and shunned and chained. And I don't know. It's anyway.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yay, America.
I don't want to go too far in it, but the conversation we had before we started about the Make America Great Again hats and the kids being falsely accused of being a thing they weren't, it all ties into the whole narrative. And as we talk about a news show, I am frequently lamenting what we call news in this country. And Seth, you nailed it with this title. Is it news if it's not new? We'll never talk about anything new on a news show, because that's what news is. That's not what news is in our country. And what passes for journalism makes my stomach turn on a regular basis. And maybe we'll talk more about that. But I want to move on to something super important before we go on. In my red Netflix DVD, anybody remember those? I'm the last guy in the country that still subscribes to that service.
I remember them.
I was talking to a guy today when I mentioned that, and he was like, he didn't even know that was a thing. Like, to him, Netflix has always been a streaming service. He didn't even know. But anyway, in the red envelope this week came the much anticipated, highly acclaimed Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson piece, Skyscraper. And
no spoilers. I want to see it.
So, spoiler: the building burns and he breaks through glass, and it's one of at the very beginning. There's a scene where the main character should be and is in some ways deformed. And they show people around him. It's an explosion. Spoiler alert. There's people around him that are deformed. But because he's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he comes out of this horrific explosion with a perfect face. Not a scratch on him, because there's no messing with that moneymaker right there. And the whole movie is predictable all the way through, and just cheesy in the best possible ways. And if you expected highbrow art, you wouldn't have even considered this movie. It's Die Hard done over again, without the buddy cop thing, and takes place in China, because if you put a movie in China, you make an extra $1 billion these days. So I have nothing good to say about the movie, but I have nothing bad to say about it either. It is exactly what it sells itself as: Dwayne Johnson being overly dramatic in a building.
And I think in a lot of ways we expect too much, or we try to label too much on movies, like, oh, this movie was the greatest, it's the modern day great American novel. And sometimes you just, you want an escape from a world that seems increasingly out of control, and just, can I just for an hour forget about something and just revel in the absurdity of this movie, and then after it's over, I'll pick back up my load and trudge on. But can't I just escape and just have stupid explosions and a hero who's able to fire 97 bullets from a revolver without reloading, and jump 30 feet in the air and crash through a window and not even cut his shirt? I mean, come on, let me have that. Don't try to make everything super realistic and overly dramatic and Oscar-worthy performances. So, just let us have it, please.
Yeah,
that's all we got left.
The hero in this movie, whose name I can't even remember, that's how memorable it is no John McClane. But he holds the trend well. But I will say there will never be another Hans Gruber. There will never be a villain as good as the sometimes German, sometimes English, sometimes American-sounding quasi-pan-European villain that was Hans Gruber.
Hans, baby, booby.
All right, so I haven't watched a bad movie in a while, and so I wanted to comment on that. And Seth, coffee, go.
Yeah, I am. I'm still waiting for that $1 million pay in advance order that's going to set me up for life. But hey, I've actually sold coffee, and so while I'm still way in the red, slightly less in the red, starting at zero and building my way up, $48 in sales. I guess I shouldn't have said that, because I guess after taxes I owe the government $100 now. But it's cool. It's fun. It's something. Who would have thought that I would enjoy making coffee? I don't like the taste of it. I still try it, and I'm like, it still tastes like coffee, and I don't like it, but I enjoy making it, and people enjoy drinking it. I actually had one person at church. I was going to use her as an in to her office, and she like drank it and said, "This tastes too smooth. I like something with bite and bitter."
Yeah, I hear that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, my coffee tastes too good for you. That's why you don't want to buy it? And I just thought it was funny. So
yeah. I've given it to people who are like, yeah, it's fine, but I like the black sludge at the gas station. And, you know, if that's what you're into, then you don't want the pure experience. You're a PC and not a Mac at that point.
You got to tap into the Starbucks crowd, guys. They like sugary water.
Right. Yeah, their stuff is crap. It's, yeah. So the Project Blue Book, as in the Rancha book, as in UFO book?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. History Channel started a series on it. It's fiction, but it's the closest thing I've seen to the X-Files.
Wait, how does fiction make it to the History Channel?
I don't know. I asked.
They're dipping their toes in a new genre.
Yeah, they're like, everybody wants to become Netflix or something. I don't know, but yeah, they've created this show. It's pretty good. A little slow, but you kind of get the sense that you have to go through the character development and the early days in order just to be able to get a sense of where this is going to go, because it seems like it's a show that could go on for many, many seasons. But yeah, it's kind of like a X-Files set in 1950 something or 60 something, something like that. Roswell time. No, what was that? Late 40s, I guess.
I don't know.
Something like that. Sure, we'll go with that.
There are people right now that are shouting at their podcatchers saying, "You morons!" I was just talking to somebody today who was talking about wanting to go to Dallas and to see the JFK Memorial and the 6-4 Museum and everything. And, of course, I've been there several times because I lived in that area for a long time. And I said, my favorite part about that is not the history. It's all the nutbags walking around telling you how all of this is wrong.
It's true.
That's my favorite part of that experience.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
You know what my favorite part of that is you take that museum tour up into the book depository and you stand at the window and you look down over Dealey Plaza and you see the little X's marked on the ground. And you think to yourself, could I hit a moving target from here to there? And categorically, no.
No, I could make that shot. I have no doubt I could make that shot. I don't know if I could make 3 in succession, but I could, untrained, country boy who grew up around guns, I could make that first shot pretty easily.
Wow, you're good. Don't forget, it's a moving target. That's the hard part.
But moving at like 27 miles an hour. I mean, it's barely moving. True.
In a straight line. Yeah, you can, trust me. Any East Texas country boy who's been squirrel hunting, you can make that shot. That's not hard. Now, getting the others and the speed, that's where the military training comes in.
Right.
Right.
But, of course, if you listen, just find a crackpot out there. There's plenty of them. As we were standing on the side of the road looking at they have the X's on the road. Like you said, they've literally painted a red X on the road. And this dude walks up to, that X is wrong. That's in the wrong spot. If you look at the film, you can clearly see. And I was just like, dude, this is why I'm here. Bring it on. Tell me. I was just his disciple. I was feed me, Seymour. I wanted to know everything about it. Inside, I was laughing at him. Not actually just inside. I was actually outwardly laughing at him. But it's a great experience. So if you ever go to Dallas, go to Dealey Plaza, seek out those guys, because that's the most entertainment you can have while you're there.
Yep.
And I don't want to talk about Hangouts being disconnected. It's going to be replaced. It's not going to be disconnected. It's just a different thing. Mainly they're trying to get people away from texting on their phones with it.
Actually, well, I got a question. This can go to anybody listening to this podcast. Does anybody have an alternative texting app for an Android device that'll work on a Wi-Fi network but gives you a regular phone that you can use internationally? Because that's the one thing and probably the only thing other than the show here, but that's probably the only thing I really use Hangouts for. So I'm looking for something that I can use as like a phone replacement that I can take with me anywhere in the world and receive and send texts and so on. But and Hangouts, for the most part, did that.
You don't have to talk to regular phone users. You're okay if you have to have, those other people have to have an app?
No, I need regular.
Okay.
What I need is my main reason is that we have this technology that monitors different services at our data centers, and when something goes down, I get a notification. And I've been using Hangouts because then it can follow me anywhere on the planet. It's really good, but I don't think there's anything like that out there.
There are apps, Group Me or something like that, similar. You can group text through an app, but if you have a phone, you can reply to the text. So you could, on your phone, you could set up a group that would include like the number calling and your number. And if the number from your data center, if it calls, it goes to that group, which you would then see it on your other phone and be able to reply. Group Me, maybe, I can't remember the name, but somebody at my church used it for communicating, and it managed group text.
Okay.
You just need to set up an asterisk server in one of your data centers and pay $2 a month for a dial tone. And
yeah, I've got that. And I do have an ability to text out of it. The dial plan that we use out of a company in Vegas does that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious of just as people start experimenting with, this thing's going away, what are they going to come up with to replace it? I'm all ears.
yeah, I only ever used Hangouts, and my daughters use it. That's their primary communication device, but they just use it for the equivalent of FaceTime, and there will be the new version of that. I forget what they're calling it. So you're looking for the actual phone service there. I don't know what that'll be. But somebody's going to fill that gap.
Yeah, Google, I'm willing to pay you here. I mean, I don't expect anything for nothing. This is valuable to me. I'm willing to pay for it.
But you're the outlier there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Somebody will step up and fill that service. It'll be a couple bucks a month, and it'll be a thing.
Fine. Yeah.
I'll keep my eyes open.
All right.
All right, moving on to the news. Walmart moves one step closer to open warfare with Amazon. Just a quick aside there. I think it was late last year, Amazon breached the 51% mark of all household purchases. All what's the word I'm looking for?
E-commerce purchases, though, right?
No, it was like all purchasing.
Oh.
They hit 51% of all purchases, household purchases made in the U.S. were through Amazon late last year.
So was that 51% of households purchased through Amazon, or 51%? Because
if all purchases of household goods was basically it. So it wasn't like, it's not all purchases because it's not buying tanks, right. But purchases made in a household context. I don't remember the details, but basically they just became the number one retailer at that point. Amazon took up 50% of retail sales in the U.S. late last year.
Wow. That's I don't know. I think it's scary anytime one company has over 50%. So I don't mind there being a big dog, but which is why Microsoft is scary, because they have over 50% of the server market. So, or I mean OS. Well, y'all know what I mean. So, but yeah. So anyway, this story, of course, Amazon they rule e-commerce, and so Walmart a while back pulled out. They got all of their cloud infrastructure off of the Amazon Web Services, and Google had set up like a consortium to kind of challenge Amazon through, like Google Checkout and things like that. And Walmart was one of the key players in that. And so recently Walmart just pulled out of that and said, we're going to go it alone. I guess they didn't want Amazon to have a chunk of their revenue. They didn't want Google to have a chunk of their revenue. So they're bidding that their store footprint everywhere is going to give them a way to do ship to store and in-store pickup and things like that, has a way for them to challenge Amazon. So they're not frenemies. They're, becoming more just outright enemies as Walmart looks to stay relevant in the digital shopping era.
All right.
So
I just did some.
I was going to just ask a question. Real quick one, Seth.
Okay.
Will Walmart using AWS for their e-commerce?
They stopped that like a couple of years ago or last year, I think. But they used to. They don't anymore, but they used to.
It's like Microsoft running on Linux servers. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
It's like got fail all over it. But wow.
So
okay.
I just did some Googling while Seth was talking. It looks like you were right, Miles. It was e-commerce. So the article I read apparently misquoted the stats. It's 51% of e-commerce sales, but that's still pretty darn huge.
It's huge. Yeah.
It is. So, yep, they're definitely number one in America. Now, and then, that's obviously not worldwide, even though there's a very American-centric view of the web when journalism's report, Amazon dominates the web. Well, no, they dominate the American web. China barely lets them in. So things like that, so of the American market, that's where they dominate. And that's just something, us and our American privilege just got to get over.
Well, I remember a few years ago, more than a few years ago now, probably 10 years ago, when Amazon was just sort of becoming the everything store that it is today. They ran a promotion for a short while there. There was a X%, I forget, 5 or 6% discount on purchases made using geolocation inside a Best Buy store. So if you were inside a Best Buy store and you bought an electronics purchase, they gave you a discount. That's how cutthroat this industry is. That got shut down pretty quickly, but it made the point there. And it's kind of Best Buy, Home Depot, to a lesser extent Walmart. These people have become Amazon showrooms. So people go to Walmart, they pick the thing up on the shelf, they look at it, they turn it over, they say, I want one of these. Then they pull out their phone and they order it on Amazon.
My daughter's a senior at college, and she is in a business course. She's doing business administration, I think. And they had a big class about Amazon recently for the very reason of saying, at what point will Amazon get broken up by the federal government? So they're beginning the conversation at that level, not let's look at the rise of Amazon and what we can learn from it. No, let's see what we can do to break this thing up.
I don't know. It's hard to. I think that would be at this point a hard case to make that Amazon is anti-competitive to the point of being illegal in the U.S. That would be a difficult thing because there are so many options. You can't punish somebody for just being the best at what they do. When they broke up Ma Bell, for example, Bell owned all the copper. There were no competitors. There was no option for competitors. Somebody had to go bury copper, and then they owned the rights to the poles and the leeway, so you couldn't even do that. That's Verizon ran the whole FiOS thing to get around that. They had to dig under the streets because they couldn't use the telephone poles. So I can see that, but just because Amazon offers a quality product at a low price, that's going to be a hard thing for the government to stick.
Is it really? I mean, maybe. Well, anyway, that's the future of American politics. So while rationally I understand the argument you're making, you are assuming a level of rational thought that seems, more and more foreign to the current governing bodies of the United States of America.
Well, at least now that the government is back open again. When last we spoke, the government was shut down. Now they're open for at least 3 weeks. So now we can get back to suing hardworking entrepreneurs. So I'm excited about the fact that our government can once again begin prosecuting its most successful citizens.
Well, that's, just because that business made the money, what right does that business think it has to actually keep the money it makes? Mark, you've got to look at this from the bigger picture here. The government knows far better how to dole out the money that the business made, and it thanks the business for making the money, leaves it with a pile of lawyer bills. But I think the government is really better in a position to have its, foot on the throat. I mean, thumb on the pulse of the American government people.
I'm going to butcher this. Somebody will correct me. But I read it was just a quick quote as I scrolled past the headline. I didn't even read the article. But there was a California congressman, I think, maybe governor. It wasn't governor. It was somebody who was talking about how to, and the quote is burned into my brain, how to fairly distribute the cost of the California wildfires across the citizenry. fairly distribute the cost. So a bunch of stuff burned down. How can we make people whose stuff didn't burn down pay for it? Welcome to America.
Yep. Welcome to America.
Yeah, I don't know where to go with that. I mean, I don't know. Look, I'm on the receiving end of Amazon's world domination because, you know, our company sells services to host stuff for people. And thankfully, the majority of our clients are governments, or they're in, you know, like high security or HIPAA or, you know, PCI, that sort of thing, where the client expects to be able to give me a call and say, I want to come down and visit my servers or visit your data center or put hands on to where the stuff is. And, you know, our whole business model is that we can walk them through this massive data center. And I've had, you know, legislators and senators and so on come through the data center, and I've pointed to the server and go, that's your server. That's where your stuff is. That's where it's backed up. Does that mean anything? Well, I don't know. Backups go digitally between, we have 2 data centers. We have in multiple states. So I'm making the assumption that I understand that things are redundantly duplicated. Anyway, the whole reason I'm pointing this up is that there's a major price premium for that, because it's me and my guys, right? It's not a big Amazon corporation. And yet if you're a small business and you want a website, just spin something up on AWS and, you know, pay 50 cents a day or something and you're good to go. I can't compete with that. So that entire market of non-high security regulated hosting disappeared away from us years ago. And I'd love to be able to compete in that space. My bandwidth's just as good as Amazon's. And, you know, I draw power from the same reserves that they do. We have the same redundancy costs that they have. So why not? But I can't.
Well, it's the economy of scale. I mean, it's the same people who bemoan the fact that Walmart put the local hardware store out of business. That's not Walmart being evil. That's just the way business works. And, you know, and Miles, you have rightly just found a different customer base. Yeah. And found a thing that you excel at, and that's what you have to do.
Yeah, it's true. You do have to find some way to deal with it all. I just wonder, at some point, very global meta statement here, when is it less of a life experience to be in a place where you have the same vendors and the same template stores in the same cities and the same interconnected networks and the same providers everywhere you go, and you never discover anything new anymore, and there's no creative ability for a small business to come up and invent something new before they either get shut out of business by lawyers from Corporation X or bought out of business by lawyers from Corporation X. I don't know if that's a healthy thing for humanity.
It is like I say, it's not that we've never had change, because we've always had change, but it's getting to the point to where you can't, you almost can't plan for the change. It happens so fast. You haven't even learned how to deal with what is today before what's coming about tomorrow is old news, and you still haven't figured out how to use today's stuff yet. So it's hard and it's scary because, well, I don't know. Some people look at the glass half full, some people look at the glass half empty, and other people, you need an autopsy to figure out how they drowned. So.
Wow, that went dark really quickly there.
Sorry, I was looking for words that would, say something different. And
well, let's stop talking about global monolithic software companies and move on to Google.
Right. So Google's motto used to be "Do no evil," and so they're looking at, and of course, this is like, hey, this is what's going to be coming in our browser, maybe, unless we decide to change it at the last minute and then put it in after we told you we weren't, kind of thing. But so they're adding technology that would basically render ad blockers ineffective and obsolete.
Current ad blockers.
current ad blocker. So is this a case where, much like Microsoft kind of hamstrung the AV industry by releasing their own, or, is it going to be one of those, hey, if the ad companies pay us, we'll give them a way to bypass the blockers kind of thing. I don't know. It's just one of those. It seems to me like Google, because when I look at Google, wow, look at them. They are a titan in software. They have Android. They're working on another system that's not even Android. And then they have search, and they have their G Suite. Their web services tend to be lagging behind, but they are a giant in the software field. And yet, moves by Amazon and Apple and Microsoft could, they're like 1 month away from obsolescence, really. It's scary to think that a company that big could go that quickly. So I don't know.
Well, let's not lose sight of the fact that Google is not a software company. Google is not a hardware company. Google is an advertising company. That's when an advertising company makes it more difficult to block ads. No one should be surprised by that. And there's several things about this that, to me, this is the panicky people panicking, right? So in the Chromium source code, they're going to make it difficult to impossible for add-ons to sniff incoming traffic. That is a safety and security and privacy thing. That's a good thing. Now, unfortunately, ad blockers exist by way, and as do many other extensions, by the way, exist by sniffing incoming traffic. Google just wants to say we want the traffic to hit the browser first and not hit the extension first. There will be a way around that within the browser, within the plug-in architecture, I have no doubt. But even if there's not, Chrome is not the web. That they can put that in the source code. Somebody else can take it out. Firefox is still out there. I just don't see this as the sky is falling kind of thing that the internet people want it to be. This is a company who makes their money selling ads, making it harder to block ads. I don't know why this is shocking to anybody.
Well, it's a choice. It's a choice, though, right? You choose. This is a personal choice, and the only reason why people would say it's not is because they've got habits that they can't break. The choice is, you're using Chrome. Well, you don't need to. Try Brave. There's a great browser. Mm-hmm. It's very fast, and it does the job, and it's not going to put you into these problems. I mean, that's number one. Two, well, I need to search, so I go to Google. Well, try DuckDuckGo, something that might just at least protect you a little bit away from the search. There are things there are alternatives out there, and those alternatives will never actually see the light of day unless people embrace them for the very reason why they're there, and that is to be an alternative to all this sort of stuff. If you don't like Facebook, there are other alternatives. There's one called WeMe, for example, which is kind of an alternative decentralized Facebook. Try that. If there's a lot of things. People can say, well, yeah, but no one's on there. Well, that's fine. Encourage them to get on there. Like, this is how competition is developed. It doesn't, we've become so ingrained with being spoon-fed everything like we're 3-year-olds. Like, here's a browser. It's Google. You can trust it. Well, why don't I use another browser? Don't ask that question. Just use Google. No, ask that question. Then we can have competitors. But there are alternatives.
But Miles, that would take work. And isn't complaining about it on Facebook enough? I mean, man, what more do you expect me to do?
Well, I
rest my case.
I just want to, take solace in the fact that, we've talked about the servers and Amazon dominating that and Google dominating the software world. At least none of these companies have a foothold in my home. At least the electronics in my home are perfectly safe from any intrusion from any giant monolithic company, right?
You'd like to think that, wouldn't you? Sorry. But yeah, so Amazon has moved one step closer, and their foot is not only in the door, now it's like, now they own the door that you're trying to lock them out of. So they recently acquired a seat on the board of the Zigbee Alliance, which is the Zigbee wireless protocol is not something that you're going to use on your day-to-day things, but it has a lot to do with Internet of Things and household automation and all of that kind of stuff. And now, so in addition to having Alexa everywhere in the Amazon Fire tablet and the Amazon app running on your phone and all that kind of stuff, now they have a seat on the Zigbee Alliance to help shape the protocol and make sure that their devices are more finely tuned and fully supporting of it. So anyway, you know, it's they're one step closer. They're getting their foot out of e-commerce and into, you know, your physical real estate, because, you know, there will come a point to where if you're not online, people won't think you're home. You know, oh, you still live here? I haven't, you know, you haven't popped up online. Well, I got rid of all my Amazon stuff. Well, then you're dead to me. I can't talk to you anymore because Alexa doesn't like that. So,
of course, let's put into context that getting onto the board just means they paid a bunch of money.
Right.
That it doesn't necessarily mean that they have any kind of ruling authority at this point. But
right. You know, this is, and like I say, this is, you know, you gotta come on, Mark, I'm trying to get some sparks going here. What are you doing throwing water on the fire? But, you know, this is the first, and again, in one way, this is good because Alexa is very popular, and you want to make sure it interfaces. You know, there's not a lot of home automation stuff that is widespread, but, you know, and there's competing silos, like the Nest kind of works well with Google, but does it interface with Alexa? Probably not very much. So this is just a way to make sure that they won't get locked out of the stack by other companies coming in and buying a seat on the board. So now the other companies are beholden to Amazon because Amazon paid the most to get their seat there. So they have the money to turn this into, well, this is how you're going to do it if you want to use this protocol because we own the protocol. And again, I'm not saying that's what it is. And again, I'm not saying Amazon's going to do that, but it just puts them in a position to more firmly have their, you know, finger on the pulse of home automation.
Wow.
Which could be good or bad.
Miles, you were going to say something?
Yeah. Well, there was a really interesting. I listened to the 2600 groups off the hook podcast every week, and they had a very interesting story about this stuff this week, and it's related directly to this. You know, Nest, I think it's the Google. You know, they originally were the thermostats, and Google bought them. Now they're part of their company. Apparently, they also have security cameras, and whatever happened to rush security cameras into the market, some family in an apartment somewhere in San Francisco apparently was having dinner or watching TV, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they hear the, I guess, like the national emergency sort of alarms, bells, I guess you get on your phone when there's a hurricane or whatever nearby. They got one of these saying that there were 3 imminent missiles coming from North Korea about to hit the United States. And of course they freaked out and they couldn't work out where this noise was coming from, what was going on, you know, nothing. They couldn't work anything out about this stuff, only to find out that somebody had hacked into their security camera, which was a Nest device, and had apparently there's a speaker on these cameras and had blasted this pre-recorded message in. And so they're like calling 911 and they're freaking out, and they're, you know, their kids are like diving under the table, and they're ready for imminent, you know, catastrophe. And it was just some idiot having a prank on their devices. The problem was that the Nest company, with Google and all of its wonderful wisdom that we trust, apparently didn't tell these people to change the default passwords on these devices when they're selling it. And I mean, it's like not the first thing you do, right? Well, apparently it's not the first thing you do when you're trying to rush this stuff into the market. And so somebody created a bot that found everybody who had default passwords and broadcasted this audio into it and was just causing complete havoc. That's the world we live in right now. And it's easy to say, well, it's just security fail and, you know, they should have done better and blah, blah, blah. But that's the world we live in right now.
Yeah, you can no longer assume that your consumer of technology is a savvy tech user. In the early days of the home automation stuff, only the geeks bought this stuff, and the geeks knew the first thing you do is you change your password. But now, as you're marketing to the masses, you can't make that assumption anymore. And that's just a growing pain that, you know, how many DSL routers were sold with a default password embedded in it. Now that doesn't happen anymore. Now you get this sticker on it with some random gibberish that you have to type in. We've learned. And this is just growing pains of a new industry. But, Miles, you said it right. They're trying to get it into the house first and then figuring out what you can do with it once you get it into the house.
Yeah. But if they want to dominate, you would also have to wonder, well, if the bad guys can get in because of poor password manipulation, so too can the good guys. And
right.
The good guys, if that's Google or Amazon, they're watching your every move.
Right. And a security camera, by definition, watches your every move. Exactly.
Right. And what's to say you don't have a rogue employee at Amazon or Google who decides to go nutso and, you know, go postal because they've got imminent termination coming or something, and they decide to use this as a means of revenge. I mean, human beings, people, come on.
But, you know, when you have these giant monolithic companies who, you know, have problems like this, at least you can count on the U.S. Legal system, specifically the courts, to be very timely and proactive in their responses to these sort of things, right?
Of course, Mark. And this is a story that we have been covering since the Everyday Linux podcast, Google versus Oracle, round 749, Mark II. And so Google has filed a petition asking the Supreme Court to rule on when code can be copyrighted. Can you copyright an API? Well, the various courts have answered that question in the following ways. Yes, you can. No, you can't. We don't know. Maybe. And sure, kind of, but not really. So all of those answers have been official case law at one point or another in the United States legal system. And so Google is asking the Supreme Court to say, hey, tell us where the legal line is, what can be copyrighted and what can't be. And of course, Oracle is saying, hey, we won the last time, so we don't think this case should go any further. And Google goes, we won the time before that. It's our turn to win, and we want our turn to win to be the last time. So, you know, they just keep passing the, you know, you owe $1 million in damages. Oh, yeah. Well, you owe $2 million in damages. Oh, yeah. You owe $15 million in damages. Oh, yeah. You own $1 billion. Oh, yeah. You own the moon. You own the moon times, you know. And so, you know, it's just two kids on the playground who have nothing better to do because lawyers got a law. You know, go make me some money, lawyers. I'm paying you anyway. You can't golf all day. So the case started back in 2010, and, you know, Google, of course, wants a favorable ruling so they don't lose billions of dollars, and Oracle wants a favorable ruling so they gain billions of dollars. And the rest of the world just says, you know, you're killing the industry here. Why can't we all just get along?
And this is why Google is pushing for the new Fuchsia OS. Not because Android is no longer valuable, but because they're afraid they might lose this thing, although they have lost it, I guess. They might continue to stay lost. I don't even know.
Another reason would be forced to buy new phones, I guess.
You know, it just makes you wonder, what happened this week in history?
All right, Mark. Well, I wanted to let you and all of the fine Opie heads know that on January the 21st, 1988, Tetris sneaks into the U.S. The computer game Tetris made its first appearance in the United States as a PC game. The company that released the game was Spectrum Holobyte, which had dubious licensing at best rights to the game. When companies became interested in licensing Tetris for other platforms beside the PC, a series of events kicked off a long legal battle, although not quite as long as Oracle versus Google, in which the big winner was eventually Nintendo, which used the Tetris to drive sales of its new Game Boy platform. And really, that's the one handheld video game console I want, is the original Game Boy with the Tetris cartridge. You don't need anything else that will keep you content for hours on end. And Mark, that happened this week in history back in 1988, and now back to you.
You know, you can do that on your phone, right? Like today, right now, you don't need to get a Game Boy.
No, I want the buttons.
Okay.
Up, down, BA, rotate, all that kind of stuff. Not the Konami code, although I've never tried it on Tetris. But because I learned Tetris on a Game Boy, the colors have always looked weird to me. That's the screen I want. I mean, I played that game so much. I was riding in the back of a van going like to a church thing. And, I was playing along, went through this tunnel for about 30 seconds, and I came out the other side still playing. So in sheer blackness, and it was awesome. I love me some Tetris.
Yeah. So kids, you don't know what a accomplishment that was, because you've never known a screen that wasn't backlit. But no, on the original Game Boy, there was no light. So when he went through the tunnel, it was dark.
Very dark.
Yeah. I would wager that most people alive today who've played Tetris have never played it on a PC. And to know that in 1988 it came as a PC game, I bet a lot of people didn't even know it ever was a PC game. Or when it did get here, they thought it was a copy of the Nintendo version. I've seen interviews with the Russian guy that invented that. He made nothing. He made nary a penny on that. The Russian government may have made something. He came from a communist country. Take note, millennials, as you're trying to turn this country communist, take note. When you are a communist country, you don't make money for the things you make. So this guy who would, had he been in the U.S., be a multi-billionaire, was a multi-nothingaire because the government took whatever money there was.
And that's why he hacked Facebook.
The government would have just taken it from him in taxes anyway. That's really the only difference between communism and capitalism. Communism just takes all the money up front. The government, capitalism lets you grab the money and then they come take it from you because it's easier to get it from one person than 100. So,
yeah, but at least they only take 80% of it here and not 100%.
Right. No, that's true.
I may lose some geek cred for saying this, but I never liked playing Tetris. Just not my game. I can see Seth. Seth just unfriended me. Just right there. 25 years of relationship just went out the window.
This will be the last broadcast.
He just mentally clicked the unfriend button in his mind. I saw it in his eyes.
I'll give you some support, right? I also skipped over Tetris in my quest to play every single game that ever came out on a computer since 1977. For some reason, I saw it, went, and then moved on to back to Space Invaders or something. I can't remember.
I liked it, but it's made for lonely guys. So, it's a perfect game for me. So
I said 25 years, but Seth, we actually met 28 years ago.
Wow.
It's a long time. All right. As you are, now gainfully employed, actually have a side hustle now. You've gone from being the guy who wants to make me less productive so you look like a better hiring option to dominating the world itself. Seth, what do you have this week for your world domination starter kit?
All right. Well, if you happen to win the lottery and have an extra $1.35 million lying around, you can buy a diesel-powered battle robot complete with cockpit. It even has phones you can operate from your cell phone. It has an integrated phone in the cockpit. It is just, I think I might do a GoFundMe to see if I can get the funds so I could buy one of these, because I just think it would be fun to own a mech that I could then get an axe built for and just, go through my property, just bashing over trees and just having fun. This is diesel powered battle robot for the win, Alex.
If you started a GoFundMe for Get Seth a 40-foot mech, I would fund that GoFundMe. I would do that. Just I wouldn't even ask for a ride in it. Just to know that you had a plus size cockpit in a battle mech. Yeah, I'm down. Sign up for that and count me in.
The one bad thing is of course, there's a video on the website. You can go and watch this tiny, looks like Japanese girl get in the cockpit and doesn't seem small in the cockpit. So, this might be what it would take to get me to lose 100 pounds. Weight limit 250. I would figure out a way. If it said weight limit 75, I would find a way. So
that's awesome. I haven't watched the video, but I have seen a few of these things, various builds in the fat, and they generally move like tortoises, who are on Haldol or something,
It can do like 10 or 15 miles an hour. Yeah, so it's not going to win. It won't be able to keep up with a tank, but like if it comes across like a Sherman tank, it could pick up a Sherman tank.
Yeah. How about personally, while this looks super cool, I would rather have a life-size AT-ST. That would be my vehicle of choice. The things from Return of the Jedi, that the giant teddy bears.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's yeah. I don't know. No, I would rather have them. I would rather have a mech with arms that I could hit stuff with. Yeah.
And by the way, you just lost major friend cred for not knowing what an AT-ST was as soon as I said it. So
yeah,
we're disappointing each other left and right tonight.
Right.
All right, this is the part of the show where I tell you how you can feedback to us. Let us know what's on your mind, what you want to see, what you don't want to see. Go to elementop.com, click the Contact Us button at the top of the page. Answer the world's hardest CAPTCHA. Fill out the form there. That will send an email to my in-basket that gets priority there. I will read your emails before I'll read emails about opportunities from Nigerian princes. You can also dial 559-IAM-OPI. Leave us a voicemail. It is still working. We had a listener leave a message to say, hey, just making sure this still works. Thank you, listener, for doing that. Or you can send an email to geekrant@elementop.com. Also, if you want to give us money, we are happy to have that money. Patreon.com/elementop. That would be a great thing. We appreciate you being with us. This is truly a labor of love. We enjoy doing it, but it is a labor. It takes effort and time every week, and we do it hopefully because you appreciate it. And let us know one way or the other. The best thing you could do, however, is to share it with a friend. Leave us a rating or a review on your podcast source of choice, iTunes or Podcast Addict or whatever. Just tell people about us. If you like us, tell people about us. If you don't like us, keep that to yourself. Seth, Miles, any final words of wisdom before we say goodnight?
2 + 2 = 4.
Unless you're an Intel Pentium.
Right.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us. We'll see you next week. That's it for this episode of the Geek Rant. And remember, pay for what you like.
Bye.
Man, I had DAW fail in the middle of that.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so
no recording from you?
Well, no, I got one, but I had to stop and start it again. So it's got this, it may have a bit of a synchronicity issue for you.
Send me those in 2 files if you can.
All right. Yep, I can. Actually, it was 3 because it broke. This is, okay, so a little Apple rant. I use Logic Audio for my DAW stuff, and it's generally very, very good. And they sent me out an update, as they do. And now it got 38 minutes into the show and came up with this error saying, your hard drive's too slow. What the heck? It's never had that problem before. So either I guess I've got to replace this thing with an SSD now or dump this DAW and get something decent. I don't know. Anyway, that was the first time in years that that's ever happened. So I'll give you the files in pieces.
Yeah, well, they gave you the updated software so they could sell you updated hardware. That's Apple for you.
Yeah, really. Yep. It sucks.
All right, so next week is Super Bowl. Are we wanting to skip that week, try a Saturday, or...
Let me check my calendar.
Saturday might be a problem for me because my daughter's coming home from college that week. And
putting family ahead of the podcast, Miles?
Yeah,
really?
Sorry.
Well, if she wants to tell us what she learned about, Google and Amazon from her business class, she could be a guest.
Yeah, she could. It'll make you sick. All the stuff these kids are being taught. Liberal arts. Give me a break.
Yeah, we could just skip it next week.
Okay. And then that gives us 3 weeks for financial February.
All right. We can come up with a plan then.
Cool. So let's talk about, do we just want to do financial February stuff? Do we want to kind of have an overarching financial February theme?
Good question.
Do we each want to take 1 week and...
Yeah, maybe we could all have a topic, like we just pass around the topic thing for each.
Let me pause you guys for a minute, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the YouTube feed because we don't want to give these people our secrets.
Oh, yeah. Shh. You didn't hear anything, people.
All right. See you, YouTube people. Bye, Jinda. Have a good evening. Go Rams just because they're not the Patriots.
Amen.
And just like that, everybody was Rams fans.